Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. It's Tuesday and I am your host on this wonderful day. We're bringing you some relevant sports stories, but also some discussions about what is going on in the world of sports. I'm joined on the line by Gboyega, all the way from Abuja. Gbenga, good evening.
A pleasure to you, Carl. Hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, I can, and welcome on the show. Now, the English Premier League, it's watched all around the world, and certainly Liverpool is one of the most popular teams within the league. And this season has been a rough one, a very rough one. A couple of seasons ago, they dropped off, but somehow Klopp managed to get them back into Champions League qualification spots. It looked a foregone conclusion earlier this season that they weren't going to make it. And they went on a run, managed to get closer to the top four positions, but then they tailed off again. A couple of bad results, inconsistency, and now they seem to be way back into the very race they seem to be out of just a couple of months ago. And now their recent win over Leicester City makes us think, and some would even say that the fist punch that Klopp gave at the end of the game was an indication, a message being sent to Newcastle and Manchester United that Liverpool is coming, winter is coming, the Reds are coming. Is that the case in this final days of the Premier League season? Can Liverpool do the deed? Will Manchester United drop off? Will Newcastle fail at the last hurdle? What do you think?
So personally, I've been disappointed with Newcastle's season. They've been third for most part of the year before dropping off lately. But I would say the way the table is right now is the way the table will end. Manchester City at the top of the log. Manchester United also fighting to be in top four. Arsenal, who we all know, are no longer favourites for the league. And Newcastle throwing them in that mix. First off, I think Liverpool are beginning to punch above their weight. I mean, a few months back, they were also struggling alongside Chelsea at the middle part of the table. In fact, as a matter of fact, Chelsea was 10th, Liverpool was 9th. And just to say Jack Robinson, Liverpool are just 1 point behind Manchester United, although Man U have a game in hand. It just shows you that they can come to the party when it's needed the most. However, we've seen Liverpool do that this season and still falter. This same Liverpool beat Manchester City before the season started at the Community Shield. The same Liverpool beat Manchester City in the league before going on to lose to a relegation zoned Nottingham Forest in the following game. This same Liverpool beat Manchester United 7-0, right, at Anfield. And in the following game, what happened? They lost to a lowly side. So them beating teams is not the first time they are doing it this season. So I don't think the win against Leicester City means they will win the top four. I feel it's not up to them. It's up to Newcastle to falter. It's up to Manchester United to falter. If those teams do not falter, Liverpool just have to step in.
But pressure is such a big part of the league. You know, they say when you're playing cup competition, you turn up on the day. But when it comes to league football, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And when you have the pressure of a team with the quality of Liverpool behind you, a team with winners who have won the Champions League in recent years, won the league for the first time, the Premier League for the first time in the history of the club. This is a team that, if we're talking about the race for the Premier League title, anybody in front of them with the lack of experience that Manchester United currently have in their squad to go all the way, the lack of experience that Newcastle have in such a run up to the end of the season with the potential of doing something they've never done in recent times. Your money would be on Liverpool, wouldn't it? Just as many people had their money on Manchester City to come back, show their quality, show their experience against Arsenal, which is now bearing fruit. Wouldn't your money be on Liverpool right now, even though the games they would need for them to get into the top four spots aren't in their hands to win or lose.
First of all, we don't understand what it means to be favorites for the top four. Okay. First of all, I feel we don't understand what it means to be favorite for the top four, because if we understand that, we would know that the teams currently in the top four of the league, Man City, Manchester United, Arsenal, and Newcastle, all deserve to be there. I mean, if you talk about coaches for the season, Eddie Howe and Eric Ten Hag are in the running. You wouldn't put Jurgen Klopp there. So I feel like that, for one, shows that the teams above or ahead of Liverpool on the log deserve to be ahead. So, like I said earlier, it's up to Newcastle and Manchester United to drop. If they do not drop, there's nothing Liverpool can do.
Well, Newcastle United, like I said before, they don't have the experience going into the running of this season. But Newcastle will face Chelsea Football Club, and so will Manchester United. Now, Chelsea haven't had the best of seasons, but I think there has been a slight bump in their form in the last two games, and they could prove to take away points from these two teams. That would be enough for Liverpool to go into the rest of the season as top four winners. Manchester United and Newcastle obviously have games in hand against on Liverpool, but as we've seen, things can quickly turn on their head. Even though Chelsea are one team that Manchester United will face, they will also face Fulham, who are not even a relegation team this season. You might have expected that they would struggle, but Fulham have this season shown they can kill giants. They can prove to be capable of playing fast, incisive football. What do you make of Manchester United going into a game with Chelsea, a game with Fulham, knowing that only in the last 10 games they've had a bunch of stutters? They stumbled against Tottenham. They stumbled against Brighton. They stumbled against Southampton. So if we count all of that, if we count the fact that they had a good period when they were going, and it seemed like, getting rid of Cristiano Ronaldo might have been the key masterstroke. But they haven't been consistent enough now for us to believe that they are absolutely going to win the top four space. Obviously, one of them, either Manchester United or Newcastle, is going to get it at the end, potentially with Liverpool being the fourth team in the table. Newcastle stumbled against Arsenal, stumbled against Aston Villa, stumbled against Manchester City, which I suppose is to be expected. So I wonder, though, that when this pressure is this high and they've not had the best of time recently, confidence is such a big part of football. Do you think these two teams have the confidence for the last three games of their season to be certain they will win and qualify for Champions League spots?
Well, I think one thing that we've learned about league football, which is actually different from cup competition, is the fact that it's really not about head-to-head. It's more about what game approach you have to the different teams you face. Mm-hmm. That is why the league football is like a marathon. You go for a 38 league game season, cup competition highest. Even the UEFA Champions League, whoever gets to the final and wins only 13 matches maximum. So that tells you the fact that form can be calculated differently. This same Liverpool side beat Manchester United 7-0, but they are behind Manchester United on the log. Manchester United still have a game in hand, right? It all boils down to the fact that the teams they are going to face, what is the game approach in which they used to face them? The sleeps Manchester United faced, barring Southampton, were all against top side. You mentioned Brighton, you mentioned Newcastle. We even mentioned Arsenal, where Arsenal beat them, was it 3-2, where 4-2, Jorginho got the third goal in that particular encounter. So it's down to what is the game approach against the teams they face. The Southamptons of this world who have been relegated already, those same Southampton beat Manchester City this season. In fact, they knocked out Manchester City from the EFL Cup. the same Southampton, I think they beat Chelsea, and they've had a good game against big sides. So it's really not about your position on the table when you face a team. It's about what is your game approach on that particular day. Because push comes to shove, Arsenal have just won 2 games in the last 7 matches, right? And that is not a recipe for winning the title. It's all Man City. But for the top 4, form is thrown out the window. It's about what can you do on the day. Let's not forget, Manchester United still have a game in hand over Liverpool.
Speaking of Manchester City, even though Arsenal dropped more points in their last game, it's not over in the league. In fact, Chelsea could take points from them, and so could Brighton, and even Brentford. Should they? I mean, let's not underestimate all the performances that.
How did you feel when you mentioned Chelsea? How did you feel when you mentioned Chelsea?
Well, I felt optimistic.
No,
like any good fan, I felt optimistic.
You can't be objective and say Chelsea will get anything out of Man City.
I said could. I didn't say would.
The last time Man City lost a game was February this year, and that was once since January.
Look, when it comes to
Arsenal
form,
have lost twice in the last 7 games.
Okay, when it comes to form, Manchester City are obviously the team to beat. And my point in raising that is that Chelsea, Brighton, Brentford, these are all teams that on any other day could take points from Manchester City. It is fair to say that Manchester City at this point of the season are not the kind of team that would stumble, that would be expected to drop points. But it can happen. Haaland is going to go into the game against Madrid tomorrow. And if he goes up against Rudiger, even if they get through the table, even if they get through the tie, Rudiger could leave a significant imprint on him that he may not be available to play the rest of the season. Kevin De Bruyne is being saved because Pep Guardiola recognizes that he's such a big part of how he wants to play the game and important to being available for the final running games of the season. Point is, this is football. One of them could catch a cold in training and go home for another 2 weeks. I don't know about you, but malaria could find its way all the way to England and bring one of them down. A significant injury could happen in training or in a match. Point being, anything can happen, and these are teams that in the past can do well. And Brighton, for example, especially Brighton, maybe more so than Brentford, have an ability under their new manager to play the kind of football that Pep Guardiola has to take serious note of. He has to be very careful with how he sets his team up. And even he has praised the Brighton model of play, praised the manager. So again, it's not impossible. And if it's not impossible, then this season is not over. The calculations that a lot of people are making right now as for who's favorites to win the league, who's favorites to finish in the top 4, none of it is set in stone.
I think when people say mathematically Arsenal can still win the league, the optimism isn't really backed up with facts. I understand the mathematics, but let's not forget, before Manchester United usurped Arsenal, they were the best team in the league. I mean, Manchester United scored more goals than Arsenal while they were second. They conceded lesser goals than Arsenal while they were second. They had almost the same number of wins. The disparity between Manchester City and Arsenal then was in the number of draws. I think they have the same number of losses at the moment. So if you look at it holistically, even before Manchester City got to the top of the league, they were the best team in the league. I stumbled on the stats over the weekend. I stumbled on the stats over the weekend. This season is the 5th time under Pep Guardiola that Man City are winning 11 games on the trot. The 5th precedence has been set. Remember the season Kevin De Bruyne went injured. We said the same thing. Oh, this is Liverpool season. They should win. In came Gundogan and he scored like never before. Became prime Zidane. Haaland could get injured and Julian Alvarez slot him nicely. De Bruyne could get injured and Odin, Gundogan or Silva could slot him nicely. These guys have bets. Guardiola had the audacity to sell João Cancelo and Zinchenko in the same window, 2 left back, and he replaced them with a centre back, Ake. Ake automatically became the best defender in the league. So let's not underestimate Manchester City.
I'm not
feel
underestimating Manchester City, but I think what we shouldn't forget is that when it comes to marathon football, fatigue is such a big part of it. There are so many layers to what allows a team to win. There's obviously confidence, there's tactical approach, there's fitness, there's technique. And right now, we are in the tail end of the season where games are so compressed. And all of that can breed the kind of fatigue for a team that is still available, still present in most of the remaining competitions, all of the remaining competitions to play. And every potential match is a headache for Pep Guardiola to consider who's going to play the next match, who has to be saved for a more important game. And all of that can not only weigh on the fitness of the team, not only weigh on the preparedness of the team, but it can also weigh on the confidence of the players as regards to who gets picked, who feels like they have the manager's trust. No doubt, Manchester City are in line to win another title, to go down as the very best team in the league, perhaps for the last 10 years. However, no matter how many goals you score, it all comes down to points. And when you consider points determine who's the best team in England come the end of the season, not goals.
Okay. Yeah, but should we consider the point? Let's just do quick maths, right? Manchester City have played 35 games. Arsenal have played 36 games, which means Arsenal have played more games. And it's a 38-game season. Arsenal have only 6 points to play for. 2 games. Manchester City have 3 times 3, 9 points to play for. Man City have just 1 win to win the league. 1 win out of the 3 games remaining. So if Man City do not beat Chelsea, they will definitely win the next game, or definitely win the last game. They will win 1 out of the next 3. Arsenal have to win their last 2 games compulsorily to usurp Man City. So when you do the mathematics and you understand that in the last beyond 15 games, Man City have not seen a loss, right? And Arsenal have seen 2 losses in the last 7 games. In fact, they've seen only 2 wins in the last 7 games. When you do the mathematics, even further maths will tell you that Man City have won the league. So I understand the facts of possibilities and probabilities, but at the end of the day, even beyond who wins the league, the top 4 as it is guaranteed.
Well, now, there's one final trump card that Arsenal could play, and it's not even for them to play, it's for the Premier League to play it. Given the current situation with Manchester City, I know in the last couple of months it has gone under the radar. The news seems to have died. The urgency of it seems to have gone under the radar. But there is still a possibility that in the next couple of months, the Premier League could come back with a finding that Manchester City should be deducted points, significantly enough that not only would it leave them as non-winners, robbing them of the title they fought so hard to win, but could even knock them out of the top 4. That is one final card that still could allow Arsenal to become crowned champions. Sure, after the fact, maybe months after the fact, but it is still a situation that is left to be resolved.
And we know that legal battles take months to be resolved. In fact, it takes weeks to file a lawsuit. And it's taking Man City just 3 and some weeks to win the title. So it's just like, let's just sneak in a little bit of politics. It's like saying there are cases in court and the selected or elected president is about to be inaugurated this month. Whatever is in the court will end on the 29th of May. That's just the way the football is. With all the legalities could come in, Arsenal could do this, Chelsea could help them do this, remembering the famous Steven Gerrard slip in 2014, 2015 that helped the other team win. Even in 2015, 2016 that Leicester City won.
Famously helped City win.
Yes, Chelsea over time have been the Abejoyes, if you understand your.
I'm just saying, it's in their nature.
I understand, but if you look at precedents, I mean, Arsenal have not won the league in the last 20 years. The first time they came close, they still lost it to a lowly side, right? It's not rocket science. Manchester City are the outright best team in the league, and they are 4 points ahead of of Arsenal with more games to play, with more points at their disposal. It's possible that Man City will finish this season above 90 points, which they've done for the last 6, 7 years, barring one season. So I still don't see the mathematics that helps Arsenal, even if they go for Arsenal player.
The
I still don't see it
mathematics
happening.
is there if you believe it's there. Moving on.
Okay.
Um, the